The contrast between Bill Gates and Ronald Read really highlights the role of timing.
Exactly. And that's where luck and risk become so critical in the psychology of wealth.
Let's jump right in. We're going to talk about a really fascinating idea today, that our relationship with money has almost nothing to do with math and everything to do with what's going on in our heads. I mean, you've probably wondered about this, right? We're always told that if you just earn more or, get a better education, you'll be set financially. But if that's the whole story, why are so many incredibly smart, successful people constantly stressed out about money? Turns out, the answer is a totally different kind of skill.
And that right there, that's the key to everything we're digging into. It's this idea that doing well with money isn't about some complex formula or being able to predict the market. No, it's about psychology. It's about your behavior and really understanding the hidden forces that are actually pulling the strings. And to get a handle on this, we've got to look at a few incredible stories. So, for our first story, we're going to head back in time to a high school in Seattle, back in the early 1970s. This is a story about two best friends who had the exact same world-changing dream.
Okay, so meet Bill Gates and Ken Evans. These two were inseparable. Both of them were absolutely brilliant, and they were completely obsessed with their school's brand new computer, which back then was an incredibly rare thing to have. They spent every waking hour programming, totally convinced they were going to change the world with this stuff. I mean, on paper, they were on the exact same rocket ship to success.
And, well, we all know how this part of the story goes, right? Bill Gates takes that shared obsession and helps kick off the entire personal computer revolution, building one of the most valuable companies in the history of the world. His success is just legendary. But here's the part of the story that almost nobody knows. Ken Evans, the kid with the same skills, the same brilliant mind, the same ambition, he never even got a chance to try. He was killed in a random mountaineering accident before he even graduated high school. One friend got to experience unimaginable success, and the other experienced just unimaginable bad luck. And this story just perfectly illustrates a fundamental truth about money and life. Luck and risk are two sides of the same coin. You can't have one without the other. They are these incredibly powerful, totally unpredictable forces that are always at play. Bill Gates was hit by a dose of good luck by going to one of the only schools in the world with a computer. Ken Evans was hit by a dose of risk, of tragic bad luck. Your intelligence and your effort are so important, but they are never, ever the whole story.
Okay, now let's flip the script completely. We're going to look at a totally different story that shows the other side of this whole psychological coin. This one has nothing to do with genius or technology, but its lesson is, if anything, even more powerful.
So, in one corner, you've got your typical financial expert. A Wall Street analyst with a fancy Harvard MBA, someone who understands markets inside and out. And in the other corner, you have Ronald Read, a humble janitor from rural Vermont who lived a really quiet, modest life. The guy had zero formal financial training.
Well, when Ronald Read passed away, his town was absolutely stunned to learn that this local janitor had quietly built a fortune of over, get this, $8 million. An $8 million fortune, most of which he just gave away to the local library and hospital. So how on earth did he pull that off?
His method. It was almost laughably simple. There was no secret stock tip, no complex strategy. Ronald Read just mastered 3 basic behaviors. He was patient, he was incredibly consistent, and he lived modestly. That's it. He just let the power of compounding do its thing over decades and decades.
And this is the whole point, isn't it? The analyst from Harvard probably knew 1,000 times more about finance than Ronald Read, but that knowledge is completely useless if you don't have the right behavior. Read's super simple, repeatable behavior was way more powerful than the expert's complex knowledge, because he was able to just stick with it through all the ups and downs for his entire life.
So if you put these two stories together, the tale of the two geniuses and the story of the humble janitor, they reveal this really dangerous mental trap that pretty much all of us fall into when we think about what it takes to be successful.
It's called survivorship bias. We are obsessed with studying the winners, right? The billionaires, the celebrity CEOs, the star athletes, the survivors. We look at their success and we think, aha, that's the blueprint. But what we're doing is we're completely ignoring the thousands, maybe millions, of other people who took the exact same path and failed.
Yeah, we just don't hear about the Kent Evanses of the world. We don't study the thousands of brilliant entrepreneurs whose great ideas got totally wiped out by bad luck or a sudden recession. When you only focus on the winners, you get this completely warped view of reality, and you just dramatically underestimate how big of a role luck and risk really play.
And you know who gets this? Bill Gates himself. He openly admits that that one single stroke of luck, just having access to that one computer at that one school, was an absolutely critical ingredient for his success. And that kind of humility is key. Acknowledging the role of luck doesn't take away from the hard work. It just keeps your feet planted in the real world.
So, what's the big takeaway here? What does all this actually mean for you, and how you should think about your own money?
Well, this brings us to what I think is the real wisdom. First, you have to be really careful who you look up to. When we only focus on these extreme outliers like Bill Gates, we might end up trying to copy strategies that only worked because of a 1 in a billion shot of luck. The real role models are often people like Ronald Read, whose success came from sensible habits that anyone can copy. Second, you have to accept that uncertainty, luck, and risk, they're just part of the game. That's not being negative, it's just being realistic. It means you build in a margin of safety into your plans. Which leads to the third thing, focus on consistency. The magic in Ronald Read's story wasn't some brilliant move, it was just decades of patient, boring saving. And finally, the goal isn't to be a genius. The goal is to consistently avoid making terrible mistakes. Building wealth is way more about not getting wiped out than it is about hitting a home run.
And this quote just says it all, perfectly. At the end of the day, financial success is less about what you do when everything's going great, and it's much more about how you handle yourself when things inevitably go wrong. It's a game of survival, not a game of brilliance.
So, I'll leave you with this final thought. When you look at your own approach to money, are you trying to be a genius? Are you chasing that perfect stock pick or trying to time the market? Or are you building a plan that's tough, a plan that's designed to survive all the unpredictable curveballs that life is definitely going to throw at you? The answer to that question might just be the most important financial decision you ever make.